Good morning, good morning, good morning, everybody. Here we are for another week, August 12th, 2024. Closing in on year 29 for me. I'm very, very excited about that. Very proud of myself, everything I've learned, everything I've accomplished, and everything that I've been doing, leading into this last year of my 20s. And I honestly can't wait to get to 30 and just like kick up and kick back and, you know, be an old man and just enjoy life in this next stage of it and everything that's coming down the pipeline for me and my family. And I'm very excited about all of it. But we're here on another fine Monday to go through our deluxe session. Now, what's that entail? It entails going over the important news notes and analysis for Monday, but also laying out the groundwork for the rest of the week, right? You can't operate effectively if you don't have intelligence regarding what's going on the ground, right? If you're dropping into a war zone, you got to know what's happening, what's going on, who's where, what the sentiment is, right? Where is the tide turning? Is there any definitive evidence the tide is turning one way or another? Right? You've got to know all of that stuff, including what to look out for, so that you can get, kind of a preliminary picture of the week in order to frame your expectations. Because we all know bad weeks in markets and blowing up your account and all that happens, not really because the market moves the way you don't want it to, but because you have incorrect expectations regarding the market movement that happens. Right. So I'm joining you, even though I was cold. So I'm joining you here. I've been in a hoodie and sweatpants actually all day, and I feel like that's because it's not like normally the 90 something degrees that it has been. And I had AC blasting and everything. But we're here, warmed up, feeling sporty, feeling ready to go. Start this week off on a high note, right? As always, we're here to do one thing and one thing only, and that's get 1% better by the end of this session. That's our goal. That's what we're looking to do, right? We don't want to put too much pressure on ourselves because then we'll never measure up to what we think we should be doing, right? If you aim to get 1% better, then you know that if you just learn one thing, or maybe it's just meditate, or maybe you just work out, or maybe you just watch that one extra video, or place that one extra trade, or paper trade, or something like that, right? That tuning into this session, right? That can entail you getting 1% better by the time you lay your head on that pillow at night. So that's why that's our goal, right? We set realistic goals, and that way we end up achieving, realistic things, and over time, great things that you didn't think were realistic, but it's because you just focused on that 1% each and every day. You don't go out and say, yeah, I'm going to learn how to do brain surgery today, but you can learn something each and every day that puts you toward eventually being able to execute brain surgery, right? It's not too crazy or too hard. So throw those ones in the chats, and then we're going to go over what we expect here out of the week ahead. So we're going to go over our week ahead newsletter, and then we're going to go over our specific Monday newsletter, right? So let's dive in, baby. Wall Street's attention, it says next week, but now it's this week. Wall Street's attention this week will shift to inflation from the labor market, with the producer price index and consumer price index readings for July due on Tuesday and Wednesday, respectively. Also, on tap will be retail sales data on Thursday. So that's important. We got CPI data and PPI data on Tuesday and Wednesday of this week. That's nice because it's earlier on in the week, right? It's earlier on in the week that we get these data points out of the way, that we get these pieces of information out of the way. And that's good because you kind of don't have to wait all week in the market, kind of chop in anticipation of that. The non-farm payrolls report earlier this month sharply upended the narrative around monetary policy, stoking fears about a recession in the U.S. and sparking concerns that the Federal Reserve had waited too long to cut interest rates. The second quarter earnings season will also continue to garner attention, with many heavyweight names scheduled to report. These include retail behemoths Walmart and Home Depot, networking giant Cisco, Chinese e-commerce major Alibaba, and the world's largest maker of farm equipment, Deere, ticker DE, John Deere. So we don't have like huge names reporting, but we do have, important names that are reporting. One of them here, a significant one that I've pointed out recently within our trading group in terms of, analysis regarding this stock, and it has some explosive potential. It might not be one that you, initially would put in that category of being explosive, but it's one that we have there on the watch list and that we've been paying attention to here for a spark to happen, right? That could ignite that crazy move, and it might be earnings, right? It might just be earnings. So we'll look a little bit deeper into that as I get into the trading group call out specifically. Now, earnings spotlight Monday, August 12th. We have Barrick Gold, whose ticker is GOLD. We've got Monday.com, whose ticker MNDY, and Rumble, RUM, right? The conservative social media network, basically. They all report today. Then Tuesday, we've got Home Depot, 10 Cent Music, and On Holdings, whose ticker is on. Wednesday, UBS Group, Cardinal Health, Brinker International, and Cisco. Thursday, Walmart, Alibaba, Applied Materials, John Deere, JD.com, and Tapestry. So definitely the biggest names reporting on Thursday for sure with Walmart, Baba, AMAT, JD all reporting then. Those are big names, especially, AMAT when it comes to the whole semiconductor space and the AI boom. AMAT has been a big beneficiary of that. Let's see what else we got going on here. Anything else important? Nothing really, nothing really. So let's go to our economic calendar then and make sure that we have laid out everything. In terms of earnings, the biggest earnings day is going to be Thursday for sure, but it's not going to be any of these major companies that, can move the whole market. It's going to be, companies that could definitely affect certain sectors, right? Like Walmart will definitely affect that whole retail sector, right? Let's get into the major economic reports of the week. We got nothing today. Tuesday, we have core PPI, right? So producer price index, essentially measuring inflation for producers, right? The entities that produce the goods that we consume. And then Wednesday, we get consumer price index data, right? So CPI data is not the Fed's preferred measure of inflation, but it is the one that tends to move markets the most. PCE is what the Fed uses, but markets seem to move most off of CPI. So the big day is going to be Wednesday with CPI data. That's going to be probably the biggest day of the week. And then Thursday, we get retail sales, 8:30 a.m. Shouldn't be a huge mover, but we do have a few different earnings to keep an eye on. So all in all, kind of a docile week, but still, I can't say docile when we have inflation data, right? It's like we have weeks where we have absolutely nothing on the calendar. That's a docile week. Like this is a week that just isn't a week that punches you in the face, right? And then runs around the corner and comes back and chops you in the back of the throat, right? This is a week where it's like, okay, we've got like kind of one major factor to worry about, and that's CPI. So it's like, oh, and you still have to be aware that PPI can have an effect, right? And that's on Tuesday, but Wednesday is the biggest thing in that CPI. So it's a lot easier than a week like where you had all the big tech earnings, you had Powell, you had all. I mean, that's where you're getting Jones, right? It's a 6v1. This week, at least, you could say, all right, this is a 2v1 and really a 1.5v1, right? I'm fighting a guy and his little brother. The little brother isn't that much of an issue, but the dude, I see you coming. I know who you are. I can prepare for you, right? When it's a 6v1, you really got to be tight. You got to keep a tight ship. You got to have a very, very important plan. You got to have patience. You got to have a system, right? All of that. It's the same thing with markets, right? You're going into battle. So if I have, an enemy and I know how you move, and I also know when you're coming at me, that can allow me to formulate my game plan. Instead of coming into the market each and every week and being like, oh, new week, whole new set of circumstances. I'm gonna wait to the bell and just see what happens. No, because you could wait to the bell. And then on Wednesday, what happens is, the market opens, let's say we move a lot, and you're like, wow, I had no idea this was going on in CPI, and I don't even know what levels are relevant. So I don't even know what trade to do after CPI happens. Because there's plenty of times where we've gapped up and sold off, closed that whole gap, right? So whatever info we get from CPI doesn't mean that's where we're going to go. You've got to know the levels, know the game plan, and then based off of what we do, you execute from there. But you don't just free ball it, right? That's how you end up chasing nonstop and ending up on the wrong side of things. And you say, "Oh, the market's rigged; it doesn't make sense." No, the way that you're operating in an environment that's unlike any other environment that humans operate ever outside of space, the way that you're operating doesn't make sense, right? It's without rhyme or reason. Astronauts plan missions for years in advance, right? They go through thousands and thousands of hours of training. Yeah, we think we can hop into markets and just like, I'm gonna just figure it out. I don't think so, my friend. Not over time, right? Not over time. That is not how things go. They will regress to the mean, right? Your experiences will regress to the mean. So that's why you want to make the mean of your experiences ones that are based off of the correct mindset, the correct system, etc., etc. Now, Wall Street breakfast. Let's get into our Monday specific news. Top news: Fed independence. As election season kicks into high gear, much of the campaign content and messaging has centered around the economy. Monetary policy has also been in the mix due to its effects on borrowing costs, which impact everything from mortgage rates and car loans to credit cards and corporate balance sheets. The Federal Reserve is also at a key moment in its latest cycle with calls to begin cutting rates before a downturn in demand and rising unemployment trigger trouble for the economy. In terms of snapshots, last week, Republican nominee and former President Donald Trump announced that a president would have at least say, should have at least say when it comes to the Federal Reserve, while VP candidate JD Vance followed up with support over the weekend. Well, not direct, he responded to CNN's Dana Bash when asked if a president should direct the Federal Reserve on how to handle interest rates. Quote, the president already has a say in the sense that he appoints the Federal Reserve's governors. The political leadership of this country should have more say over the monetary policy. That fundamentally should be a political decision. I mean, that's just not true, right? That's just not true at all because that defeats the purpose of separation of powers, and what you just end up getting is a dictatorship, right? The so it's just it all you could believe that certain types of governing work better than others, but you say that, right? You don't call it a democracy, and it's not a democracy because that's false advertisement. If you say, "Hey, I believe that," you know, us having some type of limited dictatorship or a dictatorship democracy or something like that, like if you want to call it that, cool, but like you can't just have one person or one office that can affect so many different things and you no longer be like that's not democracy anymore. So yeah, I mean, Vance kind of trying to clean up behind, and I get what Trump is saying, but the reason why he wants that power is so that he can use it to his own benefit, right? This dude did not go, and get a degree in economics, right? I studied 4 years, got my degree in economics, and honestly, like I still would want nothing to do with economics in terms of setting up policy. But this guy knows nothing about them, right? He just knows, okay, I need to get elected, so this is what I'm going to do in order to ensure that I'm okay for the next 6 months, right? I do not want somebody who's planning for my future to only care about the next 6 months, right? Getting elected. I need a lot more than that. So it's got to take into account more things than just what's happening immediately. And again, you know me, I'm not on one side or the other when it comes to these political lines. I'm here agnostic, breaking down exactly kind of what is being said, but also, kind of the thought process behind why certain postulations make sense and others don't. So we get talk from the other side here. I couldn't disagree more strongly. Democratic presidential nominee Kamala Harris told reporters during a campaign stop in Arizona on Saturday, quote, the Fed is an independent entity, and as president, I would never interfere in the decisions that the Fed makes. Business leaders have also weighed in on the latest exchange with Bank of America CEO Brian Moynihan, noting that, quote, if you look around the world's economies and you see where central banks are independent and operate freely, they tend to fare better than the ones that don't. So this is just somebody, kind of throwing some data into it and saying that independent feds oftentimes fare a lot better than ones that are controlled by the government, and it makes sense. Outlook, while it's not exactly clear what having say means, the Federal Reserve hasn't always been that independent since its founding in 1913. Congress and the executive branch heavily controlled policy until the Monetary Accord of 1951, which formally separated government debt and monetary policy. However, there have still been other presidents since then, like Truman, Johnson, and Nixon, who have also clashed with their Fed chairs. Quote, independence is essential, literally essential, Jerome Powell said during his semi annual testimony last month. I think that's broadly understood, particularly on Capitol Hill among both sides of the aisle. Now, global news, Middle East risks. With the latest report indicating that Iran will attempt an attack on Israel this week, the Pentagon has revealed the deployment of a guided missile submarine, a rare public announcement aimed at reestablishing deterrence in the region. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin has also accelerated the timeline for the arrival of the USS Abraham Lincoln Strike Group, putting energy and other sectors on watch. Attacks on U.S. assets have ramped up over the past week, with several U.S. and coalition personnel injured in a drone attack in Syria on Friday, following a rocket strike that wounded 5 American personnel at the Ain al Assad air base in Iraq. Yeah, there's a lot of that. That adds in, another dynamic when we talk about, kind of preparing for the fight this week. We know that we have CPI coming on Wednesday, right? Or Thursday, Wednesday. CPI coming on Wednesday. We don't know whenever this attack that's supposed to happen could happen or if it does happen. Now, based off of, some volume that we saw here going into the end of the week, there is a good chance that we are expecting some volatility and big downside risk based off of just how people were preparing given contract movement last week, right? So either there's vast amounts of preparation going on and hedging, or there's just straight up downside bets being made. And they're very short term, right? Very short term, but still important, right? Still of size that is worth noting, right? And worth taking some precaution yourself. So, again, praying for everybody in the whole world, right? We never want loss of life. We never want anything. So I know that things can get lost when we say, oh, we're preparing for an attack, and then it happens. And, if we only lose three people, it's oh, we only lost three people, wasn't that bad? It's still three lives. So I don't take any of this lightly, but we'll obviously stay tuned in. I'm sure if there is any attack, we will hear about it. But this throws in another wrench to the week because whenever this attack happens, right? If it does, I'm not saying that it does. I can't see the future, but if this attack does happen, then it can obviously disrupt markets. Right, it can obviously disrupt markets. That's not saying that it will disrupt them. It's just saying that it can, and we have no idea when it happens. So manage risk this week, right? Don't go out and be like, all right, I've got $1,000 account. I'm going to go buy $1,000 worth of calls because all these different charts look good. It's like recognize that we might still get an attack that everyone is anticipating, and you know things can happen. So the only thing you can do is manage risk because you can't, unless you're Jason Bourne or like who's the guy from 24? I forget his name, Jack Bauer. Unless you're Jason Bourne or Jack Bauer, like you're not going out there and stopping this attack, right? So you just have to make sure that you control what you can control, which is your exposure to markets. Sports news, final count. The U.S. and China have come away from the Paris Summer Olympics tied with 40 gold medals, though Team USA notched an overall victory with 126 total medals. USA, USA. Another clear winner of the games was Comcast owned NBC Universal, which drew a 14-day total audience delivery average of 31.6 million viewers during the Paris and US primetime periods. That's up 77% from the 17.8 million logged in Tokyo in 2021, translating into big advertising dollars. More in the making. NBC Universal has the rights to the Olympic Games through 2032, so this could be something that they, continue to capitalize on. um, yeah, I mean, I watched maybe a few things. I wasn't as, kind of caught up in the rigmarole. I watched track a little bit more just because we have actual like, business ties in that realm of track and field, and a few um in direct interaction with, some of the athletes that competed. But other than that, I'm about spending time with family and just hanging out and chilling. But it was definitely cool. You love that the U.S. brought it home. Definitely, caught the end of the U.S. Basketball game and all that good stuff. I'll probably watch the highlights because I mean, this is probably the last time that we'll see all those guys on the court together. So pretty amazing thing. In the end of an era, right? The end of an era. It'll be a completely new team the next time around. And I just can only hope that Tatum and Halliburton are not on it because, I am a light skinned males between, this Drake and Kendrick beef, and then Jason Tatum, and then, Tyrese Halliburton. It's like I feel like it's been a tough sledding, right? Some tough sledding these past few months. Halliburton and Tatum, they just don't do it for me. They don't measure up. They don't do what they need to do. So I'm over it, and hopefully they, can step it up for when LeBron and all of them are gone. Because right now, the best players in the NBA are from abroad, right? Jokic, Luca, etc. So, hopefully Ant can lead this next charge for the next USA Olympic team. Automotive news, fire warning, an electric blaze in South Korea is sparking questions as well as talk about new rules for the industry. A major fire on August 1st, it took 8 hours to put out and destroyed or damaged 140 cars, about 140 cars, was found to have been caused by an unplugged Mercedes-Benz EV that was parked below a residential building. In fact, over 600 such fires have occurred in underground parking lots in the country over the past decade. South Korean officials are now weighing whether to require electric vehicle makers to disclose their battery brands at a time when EV sales growth is slowing globally. They're trying to make these EVs cheaper and they're cutting corners, and it looks like some of these things are cutting fire. So, and that's just also why, like, look, man, like, at the end of the day, like it's just whatever you think about the stigma surrounding these vehicles, it's just not there. Like if you go and you buy a Benz and it catches on fire because of the battery, doesn't that defeat the whole purpose of you paying a premium in order to get a vehicle that shouldn't do things like that? Like, go out and get you a vehicle that just runs well for a long period of time and you're good, right? I saw a person write out a multi-million dollar check, like sitting there in the room, write it out, go and he hops in an old Volvo and drives off, right? My parents busted their butts to send us to great schools and make great connections and be exposed to a lot of things. And like seeing that, it just completely reframes your expectations because you have people that are barely struggling driving, a Maserati truck, like people that are barely have their heads above water driving a Maserati truck, and then people that actually write out multi-million dollar checks, like just at the drop of a hat for a win, doesn't make a big deal about it, doesn't do anything, hops in an old Volvo and drives off. Like that's the person that I want to be, right? Spending your money where it matters, where you think that it matters most, but otherwise, just living a nice, content life where you don't have to worry about all this money that you spend on stuff that you do for an image for people that don't care about you, right? And then they don't end up even running the same. Like I posted that car that made it however a million miles. Like I'd rather have a Honda or whatever that takes me 1 million miles than what's a car that has horrible maintenance, like an Audi or a Range Rover, right? That are just pains in the butt. And I've had a luxury vehicle before, right? And I know how it goes. But it's just like I've loved every normal car that I've had other than that car. I like that car too, but it just doesn't really end up being worth it, especially when you look at like Teslas and things like that, where it takes so long to get repairs, pain in the butt. Today's markets in Asia, we're looking kind of like a mixed bag. Japan, we're closed. Hong Kong up 0.1%, China down 0.1, India down 0.1. The footy in London up 0.4, Paris flat, Frankfurt up 0.3, the Dow up 0.2%, S&P up 0.2, Nasdaq up 0.2, crude up 1.2%, gold up 0.3, Bitcoin down 1.3%, back beneath 60K. What else is happening in terms of earnings? About 73% of the S&P 500 names beat on earnings per share. That doesn't necessarily equate to those stocks going up afterward. Remember that, right? An important distinction to be made. Disney ticker Days unveils six new themed land and big parks push. Ukraine's Zelensky acknowledges military incursion onto Russian soil. Cisco, so you got Ukraine on the offensive now. Look, $1 trillion later, we're striking Russian soil. Cisco ticker CSCO to cut thousands more in second round of 2024 layoffs. Layoffs will continue, right? We called this over a year ago, over a year and a half ago, right? There's been nothing but consistent layoffs since. There was a rising trend in, unionization that was, unfortunately for the timing of it, coupled with a rise and proliferation of AI, which literally only makes for mass layoffs and strikes, right? We had the strikes at the auto industry plants and just all over the place, right? We've had strikes at Starbucks, at Amazon, all these different places where they're striking and unionizing, but also laying off thousands of people. So like you couldn't be in a weaker spot for you being a union, right? And what they have to do is make the most of the little bit of time that they have left, right? And the AIM AI Made Easy group. We talked about like a new tool and how all these different things are being developed, and you're pretty much going to be able to do any type of image that you want to create, like at the highest quality possible in 1 year, right? Flawlessly in 2 years, full length films, right? Like flawlessly. That's how fast we're moving. So it's like that's why the actors in Hollywood went on strike because they recognize that it's not like, oh, in 5 years this will be an issue. That's the problem everybody's running into and why it's so important now to put your money to work for you in markets, right? And then learn AI. That's the dual mandate. If you do those two things, you are fine for the future. But if you think that you have time to wait, you are sorely mistaken because there is no time to wait, right? So Cisco cutting thousands more in second round of 2024 layoffs. Psychedelic drug developers face setback after rejection by the FDA. Tesla pivots to pricier Cybertrucks, halts orders for cheapest version. Market-wise, ticker MKTW founder Porter Stansberry resigns as CEO. Trump says Microsoft told him Iran was behind campaign hack. Harris also pledges to end taxes on tips for service industry workers. Yeah, wow. I did not know that. You get taxed on tips. Dang, that's unfortunate. I mean, I guess because it's like considered a part of the revenue since they have such low like minimum wage. I have no idea. I don't know about the ins and outs of that sector. And then Marvel Studios Deadpool and Wolverine surpasses $1 billion worldwide. And that's, based off of that's for Disney, of course, who produced that. But that'll wrap us up, put a bow on it, and take us out here for August 12th, 2024. We've got a fun week ahead. Well, as always, you want to make sure that you are minding the little things. It's process over profits. Profits and a lot of the other byproducts, right? That you look at as like the main goal are really just that byproducts. If you focus on the right system, the right mindset, and then consistency, right? Consistency, right system, right mindset. Hammer away at it, and success is literally the only outcome. Hammer away at the little things, focus on the small things, and just try to get 1% better daily. That's what we're looking to do, and I think we did that through this session. So let's have the rest of the day to finish strong, execute, remain patient, and close the gap between where we are and where we are meant to be. I'll see all you guys back here tomorrow morning for our next pre-market prep session. Have a good one. Peace.